Have you ever watched someone using a walker and felt a little uneasy, like something just didn't look right? Maybe they were leaning too far forward, or taking tiny, shuffling steps, or staring straight down at their feet as if they were afraid to look up. And maybe, if we're being honest, you've wondered, am I walking like that too? If that thought has ever crossed your mind, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not stuck with it. Using a walker is not a sign that life is slowing down. In fact, when it's used the right way, it's one of the most powerful tools you have to stay independent, keep moving, and continue doing the things you love, whether that's walking through your neighborhood, visiting family, or simply getting around your home with confidence. But here's the truth that not many people tell you. Most people are never actually taught how to use a walker correctly. They're handed a walker, maybe given a quick instruction like stand up straight or stay inside the walker, and then expected to figure it out on their own. And over time, small mistakes turn into habits. Habits that can limit your movement, strain your body, and in the worst cases, increase your risk of falling. So today, I want to walk you through something simple, but incredibly important. We're going to talk about how to walk safely with a walker, how to feel more stable on your feet, and how to move in a way that feels natural again. And we're going to start with the one thing that makes the biggest difference, where you stand in your walker. Now, I know you may have heard this before. Someone might have told you, stay inside the walker. Maybe even more than once. It sounds like good advice, right? Stay inside, stay safe. But here's the problem. If you stand too far inside your walker, you're actually making it harder to walk properly. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're standing with your feet pushed way forward, deep inside the walker. Your posture might look upright, and at first glance, it might even seem correct. But when you try to take a step, something feels off. Your stride is short. Your legs don't move freely. You can't really extend your foot out in front of you the way you should. And over time, that leads to a kind of walking that feels tight and restricted, almost like your body is being held back. But that's not the only issue. There's also a balance problem that many people don't realize until it's too late. Picture this. You're walking along, minding your own business, and suddenly someone calls your name from behind. Naturally, you turn your head, maybe even your shoulders. And in that moment, because your feet are too far forward inside the walker, your balance shifts backward. That's when things can get dangerous. Your center of gravity moves behind the support of the walker, and you feel that sudden, unsettling pull, like you might tip over. Even if you don't fall, it's enough to shake your confidence. And once that confidence is shaken, every step starts to feel a little less secure. Now, on the flip side, some people do the opposite. Instead of standing too far inside the walker, they stay too far behind it. You might have seen this too. The walker is out in front, and the person is leaning forward, almost chasing it as they walk. At first, it might seem like that gives them more room. But what it actually does is throw off their posture completely. When you're too far back, your body tends to lean forward in an unnatural way. Your steps get shorter again, but for a different reason this time. Your feet don't lift as high, which increases the chance of catching your toes on the ground. And that's one of the most common ways people trip. So now we've got two extremes, too far inside or too far behind. And neither one is ideal. So where should you be? This is where things start to come together. The safest and most effective position is right in between. Not too far forward, not too far back. You want your body to be aligned with the back legs of the walker, right around where those tennis balls are, if your walker has them. If you think about your feet and your hips, they should be roughly in line with that back part of the walker, not pushed ahead of it, not lagging behind it. When you stand there, something changes immediately. You'll notice that you have space. Space to move your legs naturally. Space to take a proper step forward. Space to shift your weight without feeling like you're going to lose your balance. And when you take a step from that position, it doesn't feel forced. It feels smooth. Almost like your body remembers how walking is supposed to feel. That's the position you want to return to every time. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds simple enough, but how do I know if I'm really doing it right? A good way to check yourself is to pause for a moment before you start walking. Look down briefly, not to walk that way, but just to check your position. Notice where your feet are in relation to the walker. Then gently adjust so that you're not crowding the front and you're not trailing behind. Once you've found that spot, lift your gaze again and take your first step. And as you move, pay attention to how it feels. Does your step feel more natural? Do your legs move more freely? Do you feel a little more balanced? For many people, the answer is yes, almost right away. And that's because you've just corrected the foundation of your movement. Everything else we're going to talk about builds on this one simple idea. Because once you're standing in the right place, walking becomes less about effort and more about rhythm. It starts to feel less like something you have to think about and more like something your body can do again with confidence. And that brings us into the next part of this conversation, where we take that position and turn it into a smooth, steady walking pattern that you can rely on every single day. Once you've found that comfortable position in your walker, right where your body feels balanced and your legs can move freely, something interesting begins to happen. Walking starts to feel less like a task you have to manage and more like a natural motion again. But this is where many people still run into trouble, not because they're in the wrong position anymore, but because they're unsure of how to actually move once they're there. So let's take that next step together. I want you to imagine you're standing in your walker right now. Your feet are lined up properly. Your body is centered, not too far forward, not too far back. Before you even take a step, just pause for a second and feel your weight evenly distributed between both feet. That sense of balance is your starting point. Now, instead of rushing into movement, think about stepping forward in a calm, controlled way. You gently move the walker forward just a short distance, not too far, just enough to create space. Then you step forward with one foot, letting your leg extend naturally. Not a tiny shuffle, and not a big exaggerated step, just a comfortable stride. Then the other foot follows. And as you do this, notice something important. Your hips are staying in that same relative position near the back of the walker. You're not chasing it, and you're not letting it drift too far ahead. You and the walker are moving together, almost like a single unit. This is what smooth walking looks like. Now, a lot of people fall into a pattern where they push the walker too far forward first, and then have to catch up with it. That's when you see those rushed, uneven steps. It feels unstable because it is unstable. Your base of support has moved away from you, and your body is trying to catch up. Instead, keep everything close and controlled. Think of it like this small movement of the walker, then step into it, not the other way around. Another thing I want you to pay attention to is your feet. Are you lifting them, or are you sliding them? It's a small detail, but it makes a big difference. When you lift your foot just enough to clear the ground and place it down again, you're giving yourself control. But when your foot drags or shuffles, even slightly, that's when you risk catching it on something, a rug, a small bump in the floor, even your own shoe. And those little catches can turn into big problems very quickly. So as you walk, think gently to yourself, lift, step, not in a forced way, just as a reminder to keep your feet moving cleanly. Now let's talk about turning, because this is another moment where people often feel unsteady. When you want to turn, whether it's to the left or the right, the key is to move slowly and stay within your walker. Don't twist your body suddenly. Instead, take small steps, guiding the walker in the direction you want to go. Your feet and the walker should move together, just like they do when you're walking straight. There's no need to rush a turn. In fact, slower is safer here. You'll find that when you keep your movements controlled and connected, turning feels much more stable. Now, while all of this is happening, your steps, your rhythm, your turns, there's another habit that can either support your balance or quietly work against it. And that's where you're looking. Many people, without even realizing it, spend most of their time looking down at the ground when they walk with a walker. It makes sense on the surface. You want to see where you're stepping, right? But here's what actually happens when you do that. Your head drops forward, your shoulders follow, and your whole posture begins to collapse. Your balance shifts, and your body becomes less stable. On top of that, you're no longer aware of what's ahead of you, only what's directly under your feet. So instead of helping you stay safe, looking down all the time can actually increase your risk. On the other hand, you might have been told to look up or stand tall, and when you try to do that, it feels forced. Maybe you lift your chin too high, and suddenly your neck feels strained. It doesn't feel natural, and it doesn't last. So what's the middle ground? What works best is to simply look ahead, not straight down, and not up at the ceiling. Just ahead of you, about the distance of a few steps in front. If you imagine looking out about 10 to 15 feet, that's a good range. When you do this, something shifts again. Your head stays in a neutral position. Your shoulders settle back more comfortably. Your posture improves without you having to force it. And most importantly, you can see what's coming, whether it's a piece of furniture, a pet, or something on the floor. You're not reacting at the last second. You're anticipating. And that's what keeps you safe. As you walk, let your eyes gently scan your environment. You don't need to stare at one spot. Just stay aware. Let your vision guide your movement. Now, combine that with what we talked about earlier. You're standing in the right position. You're moving the walker in small, controlled steps. You're lifting your feet instead of shuffling. And you're looking ahead, not down. When all of these pieces come together, walking starts to feel different, more steady, more natural, more confident. And that confidence matters more than you might think. Because when you trust your movement, you move more. And when you move more, you maintain your strength, your independence, and your ability to live life on your terms. That's the goal here. And as we continue, there's one more piece that ties everything together, your posture. Not in a stiff or uncomfortable way, but in a way that supports your body, so every step feels lighter and more controlled. As everything begins to come together, the way you stand, the way you step, the way you guide the walker forward, and the way you look ahead, you may start to notice something subtle but powerful. Walking doesn't feel like something you have to fight through anymore. It begins to feel supported, and that's where posture quietly steps in and makes all the difference. Now, when people hear the word posture, they often think of standing stiff and upright, chest pushed out, shoulders pulled back hard, almost like you're trying to pose for a photo. But that's not what we're aiming for here. That kind of posture doesn't last, and it can actually make walking feel more uncomfortable. What we want instead is a posture that feels natural, balanced, and sustainable. So let's ease into it. As you stand in your walker, just take a moment to notice your body. Without forcing anything, gently bring your shoulders back, not in a rigid way, just enough so they're not rounding forward. Let your chest open slightly. At the same time, think about your hips being underneath you, not pushed too far forward or left behind. You don't have to stand tall in an exaggerated way. In fact, that cue can sometimes do more harm than good. What works better is simply allowing your body to stack naturally. Your head over your shoulders over your hips, and your hips over your feet. When your body is aligned like this, something important happens. Your weight is distributed more evenly. Your muscles don't have to work as hard to keep you upright, and your balance improves without you having to think about it constantly. Now, let's bring that into your walking. As you take each step, keep that same relaxed alignment. Your shoulders stay easy, your gaze stays forward, and your body moves as a unit. You're not leaning heavily on the walker, and you're not hanging back from it either. You're simply using it as support, like a partner walking with you, not something you're pushing or chasing. And here's something that many people don't realize. If you lean too much into the walker, your arms and shoulders start to take on more of the work than they should. Over time, that can lead to fatigue, soreness, even discomfort in your wrists or upper back. But when your posture is balanced, the walker becomes lighter in your hands. You're guiding it, not relying on it to hold you up completely. That's a big shift. Now, I want you to think about how all of these pieces connect. You're standing in the right place, not too far forward, not too far back. You're moving the walker in small, controlled motions. You're stepping forward with a natural stride, lifting your feet cleanly. You're looking ahead, aware of your surroundings. And your posture is supporting you, not working against you. When you put it all together, walking becomes smoother, more predictable, more comfortable, and most importantly, safer. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about technique. It's about confidence. It's about being able to move through your home without hesitation. It's about going outside without that quiet fear in the back of your mind. It's about knowing that your body and your walker are working together to keep you steady. And that confidence changes everything. It means you're more likely to stay active, more likely to keep doing the things you enjoy, more likely to maintain your independence for years to come. And that's something worth holding on to. Now, if you take just one thing away from this conversation, let it be this: small adjustments can make a big difference. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. Just start by noticing where you stand in your walker. Then pay attention to how you move it forward. Let your eyes lift and look ahead. Allow your posture to settle into something that feels natural, one step at a time. Because every step you take with better balance is a step toward a stronger, more confident you. And if this helped you, even just a little, I'd love to hear from you. You can share your experience, your progress, or even a question in the comments. Sometimes the smallest insights can help someone else feel less alone in their journey. And if you'd like more guidance like this, simple ways to move better, feel stronger, and stay independent, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's so much more we can explore together. Until then, take care of yourself, move at your own pace, and remember, it's never too late to feel steady on your feet again.